Health officials are monitoring the new COVID-19 variant, an update on the carnival coming to the Bahamas, and former health minister promoting booster shots for all. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tyler Simonet with your JCN News for this Tuesday, November 30th. With yet another variant of COVID-19 spreading across the globe, Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Michael Darville told reporters this morning that health officials are watching the situation closely. Now, yesterday, the Ministry of Health advised that new travel restrictions have been placed on 8 southern African countries off the heels of discovering the Omicron variant. Those countries include Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. Asked if the country intends to expand the ban, Dr. Darville says this.
You could rest assured that our technical team and our advisors are definitely guiding us in the right direction. We are watching it. Our travel advisory was clear with the restrictions, and as we follow the day-to-day issues as it relates to the new variant, we must be mindful that there may be some additional changes as it relates to our borders and some of our protocols. And so this thing is very fluid. We have our tourism sector are now rebounding, and we must be mindful of how we implement new regulatory regimes, but it is being discussed as we speak.
He adds that health officials are concerned that the rapid antigen test may not be adequate enough for testing at the country's borders because the new variant is very deadly.
And if it comes into our country, it could mean difficulties for us to be able to function effectively and allow our tourism to keep moving forward. So with that being said, I've said it before, we are looking very closely at tightening up some of our protocols, and that decision will be made in short order.
At last report, the Omicron variant has been found in 19 countries across the globe. The government is set to confirm whether or not the holiday carnival will be allowed to return to the country this year. This, according to Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Michael Darville this morning.
Well, the carnival has made an application to our committee. That committee would meet for the final decision on the carnival on Wednesday. As far as I understand, all of the preliminary requirements are in and all the applications have been received. So with that being said, when our committee makes the final decision on Wednesday, that will determine the fate for Carnival.
Now, Dr. Darville's comments also come off the heels of reports circulating on social media that the equipment and machinery is already here. Our news team is actively following the story, and we'll have more on this in a later newscast. All Bahamians should receive booster shots. These are the words of former health minister and former member of parliament for Elizabeth, Dr. Jcn Sands. In an exclusive interview with JCN News, Dr. Sands was asked if he believes the country should move towards COVID-19 booster shots for the entire population. This was his response.
It is my view that every adult should have a booster shot. So that's not just the immunocompromised, that's not the age, that's not the ill. Every adult should get a booster shot at this point, typically 6 months after completion of their series of 2 shots.
Now, the Ministry of Health has advised that new travel restrictions have been placed on 8 southern African countries amidst the discovery of a new COVID-19 variant called Omicron. Dr. Sands describes it as unfortunate that these countries have been singled out.
This particular variant has multiple mutations in the spike protein, but not only. And throughout the genome of the virus, compared to the ancestral Wuhan strain of COVID, this one is very different. It raises a number of questions as to whether or not we're going to see immune escape, whether the vaccines will work. Now, it's unfortunate that we have singled out, and when I say we, I'm not only talking about the Bahamas, but much of the world has singled out those African countries who were the first to describe it. And instead of them being congratulated for their incredible work, they have now been penalized. That said, I think it's a fair response, and perhaps we can revisit this.
Now, according to the Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Michael Darville, the government plans on rolling out booster shots for immunocompromised residents in the Bahamas before the end of the year. However, nothing has been said on booster shots for the whole country as yet. The former Minnis-led administration will be held to account for what Prime Minister Philip Davis alleges are reckless decisions that were made for short-term political benefit at the expense of the country. Prime Minister Davis on Monday telling parliamentarians as much as he accused the former government of electioneering with respects to contracts issued by the Bahamas Public Parks and Beaches Authority. The issue of contract issuance up to just weeks before the general elections was raised by Minister of Works Alfred Sears.
The 2021-22 fiscal year, it had been approved a budget of $15.2 million. Beaches and Path, approved budget. Parliament voted $15.2 million. After contingencies, its total budget was around $28 million, an increase of 86% against budget, an increase that coincided with electioneering. I'm now told that because of new contracts issued in the months of July, August, and September of this year, the projected expenditure of the authority for this fiscal year is $37 million.
That, according to the Prime Minister, is an increase of almost 150% against the budgeted amount, or an increase of $22 million. Prime Minister Davis also noting that a number of these contracts were awarded to clean, middle, and high-end subdivisions like Blair and Westridge, and that's just to name a few.
The member for St. Barnabas will undoubtedly have a lot of explaining to do. As a result of this reckless and irresponsible behavior by the member as of September 30th, 2021, after only 4 months into this fiscal budget, that means you have 8 more months left. All right? After 4 months, the authority had already utilized more than 60% of its budget for the entire year. I remind you, like I say, 8 months still remains. And guess what? The roadside contracts in Kalani had risen to almost 400,000 and more.
Prime Minister Davis adds that none of this should be a surprise, given that the former administration spent $20 million on sidewalks at the height of the pandemic when hospitals were collapsing. The PM contends that he highlighted these numbers to demonstrate that the talk of the previous administration with respect to fiscal transparency, accountability, and fiscal discipline was just talk, as he says the public purse was under constant threat during their administration. Education Minister and Member of Parliament for the Engliston constituency, Glenys Hanna-Martin, making an impassioned call for male government officials to give their stance on marital rape. Yesterday, the House of Assembly turned orange as they spoke out against those who commit acts of domestic violence, especially against women and girls. Marital rape has been a hot-button issue in recent days, and Ms. Hanna-Martin says violence against women remains a major problem in society.
The men have to be the strongest advocates. Yes. You know, someone said to me the other day, why are we asking the women about marital rape? What do the men think about it? Let go on the record so the country can know. So this is a serious, somber, sober period. Because even in recent times, we've seen some situations which break our hearts and embarrass and shame us, because we all one. We are one. And so when one of us is harmed or one of us harms, we are all affected and we are all responsible to respond in some way to bring about a rehabilitation, a restoration of our people.
Mrs. Hanna-Martin urged that elected officials and political leaders must commit their lives, spirits, and resources to creating a new reality for the Bahamian people, noting that the Bahamas has one of the highest rates of violence against women in the region. Now, official opposition leader Michael Pintard also speaking out, saying that something concrete must be done on the issue of marital rape.
On the marital rape subject, I'm glad that the member for Cat Island, Rum-Keen, San Salvador has undertaken to bring that issue front and center in the Parliament, because it is a long overdue discussion that must end in something concrete that the society can measure. This idea that there can be no such thing as marital rape because two persons share a piece of paper or even an emotional bond that resulted in a marriage certificate, I mean, is absolutely ludicrous. The truth is, if a woman knows that her husband is extremely promiscuous, they still live together, she have good reason to believe that her life is at risk based on some sexual choices that he has made, she reserves the right to refuse submitting her body that could be exposed to something that could be deadly to her. She reserves that right.
Mr. Pindart says that he stands by those fighting against sexual and physical abuse against women and girls, an issue that's creating carnage in our country. Now, the previous administration made no move towards the criminalization of marital rape before the end of their term. When it comes to the current Davis administration, Prime Minister Philip Davis has gone on record to say he believes marital rape is wrong and a national conversation must be started. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.